everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today's topic on the Aspie Life of Lisa is talking about disclosing the autism diagnosis. If you like this video, you find it very informative, feel free to hit the like button, comment below, and subscribe to my channel. So I'm going to talk about what it is when you disclose your diagnosis and my own experiences. So for me, I was diagnosed with autism, pervasive development disorder, at 4. And back then when I was diagnosed, there was the only thing was Rain Man, but I never had the Rain Man stereotype, so I've been very lucky with that. But my parents often disclosed, say, just to family or to close friends or to the school, as it was at the school, of course, it was required. But I think when it came to when I was a kid, having meltdowns in public and people being judgmental of it, I think the diagnosis would have really, disclosing that would have really helped me and helped to get rid of some of that judgment. And for years when I was a teenager, I kept it hidden. I knew I was different. I knew I was different from when I was a kid. I didn't really click in with anybody. I had a hard time finding the connections, and I would take things literally. Like, for an example, when somebody said he's gonna flip, I'd literally think, oh, he's gonna take a backflip, or we're gonna get kicked out. I literally thought that would mean, oh, they're gonna take us, they're gonna kick us out, they're gonna actually physically grab one of us, kick us in the butt, and we're gonna fly out of the place. That's what I literally thought kicked out meant. Or not being able to look at people in the eyes, not being able to understand why I was getting in all this trouble randomly, and why I was going to the office constantly. Why did I get these so-called special privileges? Why was everything that I was doing was all pictures? And I found out about my diagnosis when I was 9. My mom came out and told me, this is what I have. And I also found out at school, while I was in a specialized program with other kids, this is what it is. This is what makes me different. And back then, there weren't too many people diagnosed. So back to my teen years, I kept it hidden. I never really came out, told anybody. But I think having the diagnosis hidden back then, it harmed me because it made me ashamed of who I was. It made me ashamed of myself. And it wasn't until I accepted my diagnosis when I was 17. I was in the process of accepting it. And that's when one of the teachers came out and spoke to my class, every one of my classes, about autism and what it was, and about me, and what people could do to help me in situations. This was my last year of high school. And then I started to accept my diagnosis and start doing a lot of talking on it when I was 19. So back then, as autism started to come out more and started being heard of more, I came out, and I came out of the autism closet, as you could say. But I've been out of the closet for years, and I'm very open about my diagnosis. I'm very open about it. And of course, I've used it as a way to help people. And it's also helped me in situations where I've avoided misunderstandings, or I've avoided like any kind of misunderstandings or miscommunications, and even in situations in public where I've had trouble, especially say in public transit or crowded areas, I've been open about it, and I've had a lot more understanding people, less judgment per se. So this brings me back to disclosing the diagnosis. So I find for myself, disclosing it and being open about it has helped me in situations where, say, if I was having a meltdown in public, or if I was having a really hard time, disclosing my diagnosis, I've had people ask, like, what can they do? And I've had security guards be understanding and redirect me to somewhere quieter to go. And I've also had people give me tips on, like, when's the best time to go, say, on the subway? When's the best time to take the subway? When's the best time to not take the subway? And even disclosing it in the workplace too. Working in a child care center, I am lucky I work in a school age room, and we have, like, at my center, there have been children in the past that have had an autism diagnosis. For me, I've disclosed my diagnosis to parents, and just to the parents of autistic children. I've disclosed that myself because I found from my own experiences, it's given hope for their children. And for them, it's like, wow, that's good to know. So I've had a lot of positive responses when I've disclosed my diagnosis. And at work too, when I'm in the workplace too, I know, like, a lot of my coworkers, I'm lucky, they know. And sometimes I'll need things further visually explained to me. So for me, it's helped, or it's easier for people to be very straightforward with me. So that's where I found disclosing a diagnosis and not being ashamed and being open about it, it does help, because then it avoids a lot of those misunderstandings or miscommunications. I also found this to be very helpful in terms of friendships. So in terms of friendships, I do disclose it. I do disclose to friends, and this is what I say. I'll tell the person that there's something about me I'd like you to know, and I'm very open about it. And then I tell them the reason why that I'm telling them. And I say that I tell them to avoid any misunderstandings. And I'm telling them to avoid any kind of, basically misunderstandings, any miscommunication, misinterpretations, all so forth. And if I'm doing certain things, this is why I do certain things. And then I come out of the autism closet. And then I always leave it open. Usually a response could be, oh, okay. If someone doesn't know what it is, I'll ask them. And I always use that opportunity to educate them on what it is, where I stand on the spectrum. I know a lot of people in the autistic community, there's the labels of high functioning, low functioning. I'm very lucky I don't get offended by those functioning labels, because I just basically say, like, I'm high functioning. And I use that to educate people on what it is. And I always leave the door open if somebody has questions. And I tell people too, this is what I need. And this is why I am the way I am in certain behaviors, what it is. I leave the questions open because people are going to ask a lot of questions. And if I had to pick between somebody grilling me with questions and someone misunderstanding me, I would rather have somebody ask me a million questions. That way I can I can educate them. I can use that opportunity to educate others of why I do things, what autism is, where I am on the spectrum. So I would rather have somebody ask me lots and lots of questions. And I say that to people, like, if you have questions, feel free to ask me. I'd rather you ask me a million questions than to judge me. And don't feel as if you're offending me with your questions. I'll do the best I can to answer them and explain it to them. I always say too, like, I know what I'm going to say in here. The hard part is getting it out. It's getting the words out. So that's why sometimes I'll pause, or I don't realize it. I might start in the middle of the story, not the beginning or end. I just don't realize it till somebody tells me. And I know too, like, the disclosure for me, it's helped. I feel like no matter what, people are gonna judge, and it's just something, it's like, they want to judge, then they weren't meant to be a part of my life. But what's important is that they see me as a person, because I am a person first. When people ask about, like, when I disclose it, do they like autistic people or person with autism? I'm more of autistic person, autistic people. That's just me. And if you ask anybody that is in the autistic community, they'll even tell you autistic person. I prefer that over person with autism. And I also find when I disclose my diagnosis too, it's helped me in situations where they'll understand more. And remember too, just because, like, they won't understand me in the terms of where, oh, I understand what it feels like to be autistic, because you're not autistic. You don't understand unless you are autistic. But there are certain things you can do to help me in social situations, or even disclosing my diagnosis has also helped me. Like, I disclose it in races, but it's just where they say the medical conditions, and then nothing really changes because I've learned how to cope with that. A lot of people in my life, everyone in my life basically knows. But I want to give a message to people on the spectrum. Disclosing your diagnosis can help you in situations. It's all a personal preference. Honestly, don't be ashamed of it. Don't ever be ashamed of who you are. And to parents out there who contemplate disclosing their child's diagnosis, honestly, it's a good thing to do, to disclose. And it also means too, like, people could be understanding. And if people do place judgment, there's always going to be people like that. But it does help. And don't be afraid to tell your child that they're on the spectrum. This is why they are the way they are. But don't hide it from them, and don't make their diagnosis sound like it's a hindrance or a burden, because you don't want them to be like how I was as a teenager, hiding it for years and years. I hope this video helps. If you like this video, feel free to hit the like button. Place a comment below on autism diagnosis and your thoughts. Subscribe to my channel and feel free to share. Peace and blessings, everybody, on this wonderful day.